This is the formula odd solution set. So our first question here is distance equals rate times time. This is a distance formula, and we're reading here that a car is driving at 65 miles per hour, 65 mph, and the time here is for 2 hours. 2h for 2 hours. They're asking the question is, what is the distance traveled? So my distance can be found by taking 65 miles per hour times 2 hours. If we rearrange the terms, I get 65 times 2. My units are miles per hour times the hour. We notice that the units will cancel because I have hours in the numerator and hours in the denominator. And the values here become 65 times 2. Now, 65 times 2 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. For an answer of 130 miles. My final answer. So that distance is 130 miles. Make sure that you keep the units. 130 miles. Number 3. A car is traveling at 60 miles per hour for 3.5 hours. Determine the distance. Since distance is rate times time, my rate in number 3 is 60 mph for miles per hour. The time again here is 3.5 hours. So distance equals rate times time. I'm going to plug in my R value, and I'm going to plug in my T value. So in our equation here, we'll end up with D is 60 miles per hour times my time of 3.5 hours. If I rearrange my terms, I get 60 times 3.5 miles per hour times the hour. We're going to cancel our units. We end up with miles. We have to compute 60 times 3.5. We're going to use our multiplication format with the decimal. 5 times 0 is 0. 6 times 5 is 30. 3 times 0 is 0. 6 times 3 is 18. We're going to add these values. Notice that the decimal here, there's one digit to the right of my decimal, which means I move this one decimal place to the left for a final answer of 210. That is, my distance will be 210 miles. And we're done. Number 5. The length of a rectangle is 12 inches and the width is 8 inches. Determine the area of the rectangle. They're giving us a rectangle where the length is 12 inches and the width is 8 inches. They need us to find the area. The area is length times width. So my length value is 12 inches. I'm going to plug that in. 12 inches. My width value here is 8 inches. I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to rearrange my terms so I get 12 times 8, and I get inches times inches. So notice the units. My units give me here inches times inches, which means I have inches squared, or square inches. I just have to compute 12 times 8. Doing my arithmetic, multiplication algorithm, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 1 is 9. Final answer is that my area is 96 square inches. Number 7. The length of a rectangle is 12 inches, the width is 8 inches. Determine the perimeter. I'm going to draw a rectangle, 12 inches for the length, 8 inches for the width. They want us to know what the perimeter is. Perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. I'm going to plug in 12 for my length, 12 inches, and I'll plug in 8 inches for the width, so that my perimeter becomes 2 times 12 inches plus 2 times 8 inches. Two times 12 is 24, so I get 24 inches plus 2 times 8 is 16, so I get 16 inches. 24 inches plus 16 inches, 24 plus 16 is 40. And that's actually 40 inches. We keep the unit of inches. Number 9. $500 is invested at 6% annual rate for 3 years. Determine the amount of interest earned. Interest is principal times rate times time. This is simple interest. They tell us that our principal is, in this problem, $500. This is what we're going to invest. The annual rate here is 6%. Notice 6% is written as 6 over 100, or 0.06 as a decimal. We'll be using the decimal. We can also use the fraction. The time they tell us here is going to be 3 years. So we're going to plug in 500 for our principal. The rate we're going to plug in as 0.06 for this rate value. And my time here is 3 years. So let's plug in these values. We get interest is $500 times 0.06 times 3 years. So if we do the arithmetic, 500 times 0.6 as a decimal, 6 times 0 is 0, 0, I get a 30, and I get 0, 0, 0. Add 0, 0, 3. Consider the fact that there's 2 digits to the right of my decimal, which means I move this 2 spaces to the left. The value here is 30. So I have my interest going to be 30 times the value 3. Now 30 times 3 is actually 90. Our interest is going to be $90. Number 11. The temperature in a lab features 20 degrees Celsius. What is the temperature in Fahrenheit? So, number 11, we know Fahrenheit is 9/5 Celsius plus 32 degrees. So in number 11, the information is the following. We have Celsius being 20 degrees. They want us to determine the Fahrenheit measurement. So I'm going to replace my Celsius value with 20. So that my Fahrenheit now becomes 9/5 times 20 plus 32. Doing arithmetic here, order of operation, we have 9 times 20 over 5. We're going to multiply first. Here we multiply before we add. Plus our 32. If we notice the following, that 20 is divisible by 5 4 times. So we just simply have to take the 9 and multiply it with 4 and then add it with 32. Be sure to follow order of operation. Multiply first, and 9 times 4 is 36. 36 plus 32 is 68. So your Fahrenheit temperature is 68 degrees. This is our answer. Number 13, the temperature in Montana measures 50 degrees Fahrenheit. What is the Celsius temperature? So Celsius is 5/9 of Fahrenheit minus 32. I need to know my Fahrenheit temperature to obtain the Celsius temperature. In this problem, Fahrenheit measures 50 degrees. So I'm going to replace the 50 for Fahrenheit into the F. We end up getting Celsius is 5/9, 50 minus 32. Order of operation says, do what's inside my parentheses first, and 50 minus 32 is 18. I know how to multiply a fraction times a whole number. The 9 is multiplied to the 18 as a numerator, because this 18 can be written as a fraction as 18 over 1. So if you multiply straight across, as you're supposed to do with fractions, the 5 gets multiplied to the 18. You may notice that 18 is divisible by 9 twice, so that I get 5 times 2, or 10 degrees. That is, our Celsius measures 10 degrees. (15) The temperature of Nevada measures 95 degrees Fahrenheit. What is the Celsius temperature? So they want to know Celsius again, and let's remember that Celsius is 5/9 of F minus 32. 5/9 of F minus 32. In 15, the Fahrenheit temperature is going to be 95 degrees. I'm going to replace 95 in with my Fahrenheit. Celsius would be 5/9 of 95 minus 32. Celsius is 5/9 times 95 minus 32 is 63. I'm going to multiply 5 with 63 and divide by 9. We're going to notice that 63 is divisible by 9 7 times. So we get 5 times 7, which is 35. Our Celsius is 35 degrees. Number 17. The temperature in the lab measures 0 degrees Celsius. C is 0. What is the Fahrenheit temperature? They want to know what Fahrenheit is. Fahrenheit is 9/5 Celsius plus 32 degrees. In this problem, Celsius is 0 degrees. We're going to replace 0 for our C value, because that's what it is. We get Fahrenheit to be 9/5 times 0 plus 32. 9/5 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 32 is going to give us 32 degrees. This is number 17. Number 19. The radius of a circle measures 5 centimeters. What is the area of the circle? Area of a circle is pi r squared. They tell us the radius in number 19 here is 5 centimeters. We're going to plug in 5 and 5 centimeters for my radius. Notice what we get. We get the area to be pi times 5 to the second power. Now don't forget, my centimeters is raised to the second power, so my units are going to be here, centimeters square. Now, order of operations says, do the exponents before my multiplication. So I get pi times 5 squared being 25. This is also known as 25 pi centimeters squared. We keep the symbol for pi, the value for pi, symbolic. So your answer here is simply 25 pi centimeters square. Number 21. The radius of a circle measures 12 inches. What is the circumference? So the radius here is 12 inches. I'm going to replace my r value here, 12, into my formula. My circumference is 2 pi times 12, and our units are going to be inches. If we switch the order, we get 2 times 12 times pi, or simply 24 pi inches. And we're done. (23) Distance is rate times time. They want us to solve for r. They want us to solve for the indicated variable. We got to get r by itself. Now, if we look at what's happening to r, we look closely at what's happening to r, we have this t being multiplied to it. So we have to undo the multiplication by using division for both sides. You're going to divide both sides by that letter so that we get cancellation. You end up with d over t being r, or simply r is d over t. And you're done. (25) I equals p r t. They want us to solve for t. If we look at what's happening to t, both p and r is being multiplied to that t. Let's take a look at this. We're going to solve for this variable t. We're going to have to undo the multiplication with PR for both sides. I get cancellation of both the P and the R on the right side. And now I have I over PR will be the value T, or T is I over PR. And you're done. Number 27. C equals 2 pi r, and we're going to solve for pi. Solving for pi, you're going to divide both sides by 2r. 2's cancel, r's cancel. We have c over 2r is the value pi, or pi is c over 2r. And you're done. P is A plus B plus C. They want us to solve for A. We have to get this A variable by itself. If we look at what's happening to A, we have the value B being added to it, and the value C being added to it. We undo addition by subtraction. So we'll get P minus B is A plus C. Don't forget we're solving for A. Undo subtraction, or I should say undo addition by subtraction, and we have P minus B minus C is A. Or we say A is P minus B minus C. We cannot combine these terms because they are all different. They're not like. Number 31. P is 2L plus 2W. They want us to solve for L. We want to get this letter by itself. If we look at what's happening to L, we have a 2W being added to it. We undo addition by subtraction. So we'll get P minus 2W becomes 2L. I'm going to divide both sides here by 2 to undo my multiplication. I end up with now P minus 2W over 2 is L, or L is P minus 2W over 2. And you're done. 33. Area is 1/2 base times height for number 33. They want you to solve for H. If we look what's happening to H, we see that it's being multiplied by B and 1/2. What this means is that I have B over 2 being multiplied to this H that we have to get by itself. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over B. This is a reciprocal of B over 2. We get to cancel the B's and cancel the 2 on the right side. We end up with 2A over B being H because of the cancellation, or we say H is 2A over B. And you're done. Fahrenheit is 9/5 C plus 32. They want us to solve for C to get C by itself. If we look at what's happening to C, C has 9/5 that is multiplied to it, and it has 32 that is being added to it. We undo the addition first by subtracting. We're going to subtract 32 from both sides. We get F minus 32 is 9/5 C. And like the last problem, we notice that C that we have to solve for has 9/5 multiplied to it. So we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 9/5. Make sure I put my parentheses on the left side so that I get cancellation here with my 5s and my 9. I end up with 5/9 F minus 32 is C, or C is 5/9 F minus 32. And you're done. C is 5/9 of F minus 32. In this question, they want us to solve for Fahrenheit. Now, Fahrenheit has some things happening to it. I'm going to solve for F here. If you notice, 32 is being subtracted from it in parentheses, and 5/9 is actually being multiplied to it. So here's what we're going to do. Let me clean this up here for 37. This is 37. We're going to start by multiplying both sides by the reciprocal of 5/9, which is 9/5. The reason we do this is so that we can cancel the 9 and the 5 on the right-hand side. On the left side, we have 9/5 C equal to f minus 32. We can now add the 32 to both sides to get my subtraction on the right side by 32 to go away. I get f here, and I have 9/5 c plus 32. Or my Fahrenheit is 9/5 c plus 32. And you're done. $39. D equals RT. We're going to solve for the indicated variable. They want us to solve for t, to get t by itself. There's an r being multiplied to it, so we have to undo that by dividing both sides by, 39, we have to solve for t. Got to divide both sides by r. Here we go. Okay. Divide both sides by r so that my r goes away on the right side, and I end up with d over r is t, or my t is d over r. And you're done. 41. Y minus x is 2. They want us to solve for y. They want us to get y by itself. If we notice what's happening to y, we have a x next to it, and it's being subtracted from y. So we're going to have to undo the subtraction by addition. We're going to add x to both sides to be fair. We end up with y equals x plus 2. And you're done. $43. Y plus x is 3. You need to solve for y. We're going to get y by itself. Y has an x being added to it, so you're going to subtract the x from both sides. So you get y is negative x plus 3. And you're done. $45. Y plus 2x is negative 8. We're going to solve for y. You solve for y, and you notice that 2x is being added to it. So you're going to subtract 2x from both sides, and you end up with y being negative 2x minus your 8. And you're done. 47. Y minus 5x is negative 10. You're going to solve for y. If you notice, try to get y by itself. So let's emphasize what we're trying to get by itself. Here's my y. Y has a negative 5x next to it. 5x is being subtracted from it, so we're going to have to undo this subtraction by using addition of 5x. So you end up with y being 5x plus my 10. And you're done. 49. 2y minus 3x is 12. We're going to solve this for y. We're going to first undo the subtraction by using my addition here of the 3x. And then you have 2y is 3x plus 12. If we notice that we're still solving for y, 2 is being multiplied to it. I'm going to have to undo that by dividing both sides by 2. What you end up with is y is 3x divided by 2 plus 12 divided by 2. Or y is 3/2 x plus 12 divided by 2 is 6. Both terms are being divided by 2, so we have to write it that way. Both terms here are being divided by 2, so make sure you divide both terms by 2. On the left, the fraction 3/2 doesn't simplify, but 12 divided by 2 is actually 6. That's 49. 51. X plus y is 5. We're solving for y. We're going to subtract x from both sides so that my x's cancel and I get y equals negative x plus 5. And we're done. Number 53. 3x plus y is negative 5. We're going to solve for y. We get y by itself. Subtract 3x from both sides. You end up with y being negative 3x minus 5. And you're done. Number 55. X minus y is 3. We're solving for y. We start by subtracting our x from both sides. We end up with negative y is negative x plus your 3. If we take a closer look here, we have this negative y, and that's negative 1 times my y is negative x plus my 3. So in order to undo that multiplication of negative 1, we're going to have to divide both sides by our negative 1. I get cancellation on the left. We obtain y equals negative x over negative 1 plus 3 over negative 1. We're going to divide again here. Notice both of these numbers here. Negative 1 is dividing both terms. So on the bottom we have negative 1 dividing both terms. Now, negative divided by a negative is positive. Positive divided by a negative is negative. Y is x minus 3. (57) 4x minus y is 2. We're solving for y. We start by subtracting 4x from both sides. We obtain minus y is negative 4x plus 2. Negative y is really negative 1 times your y, and that is negative 4x plus 2. We're going to divide both sides by negative 1 to undo the multiplication of negative 1. So we have cancellation here. Make sure you notice that the negative 1 is dividing both terms. That is, negative 1 is dividing both of those terms. So that I get y equals to a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. You're done. 59. Negative 4x minus y is 5. We're solving for y. We start by undoing the negative 4x by adding our 4x to both sides. We get negative y is 4x plus 5. What that means is it's negative 1 times a y is 4x plus 5. Divide both sides by a negative 1, and I get cancellation. We end up with y being 4x divided by negative 1 plus 5 divided by negative 1. The negative 1 is dividing both terms. positive divided by a negative is a negative. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. It's number 59. (61) 2x minus 3y is 6. We are solving for y. We start by subtracting our 2x from both sides. We get negative 3y is negative 2x plus our 6. If we notice, the negative 3 is being multiplied to y, so I undo that multiplication by by dividing both sides by my negative 3. You undo multiplication by division. You obtain y equal to negative 2x over a negative 3 plus 6 over a negative 3. Notice, negative 3 is dividing both terms. We end up with negative over negative, which is a positive. Positive 2/3 x. Positive divided by negative is a negative. And you're done. X minus 3y is 6. Again, we are solving for y. We're going to subtract x from both sides. We end up with negative 3y is negative x plus our 6. This is negative 3 that's being multiplied to y. You undo multiplication by division. You can divide both sides by negative 3. You end up with y equals negative x over negative 3 plus 6 over negative 3. Keep in mind again that both terms are being divided by the negative 3. You get y equals negative divided by negative is a positive. You may say this is x over 3 plus positive divided by a negative is a negative. So you're going to get minus 2. However, there's a 1 in front of that x, or at least we can place a 1 there, because 1 times anything is itself. 1 times x is x. So I can write this as 1/3 x minus 2, and this is the preferred way of describing your answer. This is number 63. 65. X plus 3y is negative 12. We're solving for y. We're going to start by subtracting x from both sides to obtain 3y is negative x minus 12. We're going to have to undo multiplication with y with 3 by dividing by 3. We end up with y being negative x over 3 minus 12 over 3. Don't forget, 3 is dividing both terms. So we'll end up with y being negative 1/3 x minus 12 over 3, which is 4. And we're done. (67) 4x minus 3y, 67, is negative 15. Solve for y. Subtract my 4x from both sides. We end up with negative 3y is negative 4x minus 15. The negative 3 is being multiplied to the y, so we're going to divide both sides by our negative 3, and we get cancellation. Y is negative 4x over negative 3 minus 15 over negative 3. The negative 3 is dividing both terms. y is positive 4/3 x, and a negative over a negative is a positive 4/3 x plus 5. $69. X plus 6y is 18. We're solving for y. We're going to start by subtracting x from both sides to get 6y is negative x plus 18. We're going to get to divide both sides by 6. 6 is being multiplied to y, so our 6's cancel. We end up with y being negative x over 6 plus 18 over 6. So I end up with, let's just remember, the 6 has to divide both terms. So then y will be negative 1/6x plus my 3. Don't forget, there is really a negative 1 times x here, which is why you have the fraction negative 1/6x. $71. Negative x minus 6y is positive 12. We're going to solve for y. We add x to both sides to get negative 6y being x plus my 12. There's a negative 6 being multiplied to y, so I have to undo this by dividing both sides by negative 6, and we end up with a y being x over negative 6 plus 12 over negative 6. Don't forget that the negative 6 is dividing both terms, so that we get y equals negative 1/6x plus, well, we have a positive divided by a negative gives us a negative. And don't forget again, in front of this x, there was a 1, which is why the fraction is negative 1/6x. We're done.